Hey everybody, I'm Jack Kriegel.
I'm Zach Goldstein.
I'm Isaac Rosenfield.
Welcome to News Flash Climate Podcast. We're so excited for you guys to join us on our very first podcast episode. So a little bit about us. We are three teens from White Plains, New York, and we realized that there was a big problem with the way that we are trying to solve climate change. The future generation of the United States of America, the people who are the future presidents, lawmakers, senators, and congressmen, are not given platforms to say what they think and how they feel about the climate. If a teen wants to go and write an article about CNN, well, they're not going to be able to get it because of their age. So we decided to change all of that. At Newsflash, we provide a platform for teens to be able to say what they want to say, including publishing articles, art, and even featuring here on a podcast with local political activists and climate leaders to discuss climate change and the issues that really matter to our generation.
All right, we're happy to here to be joined by Justin Brasch, who's the current White Plains councilman, and he's running for mayor of White Plains in 2025
Pleasure to be here. Nice to see you guys.
Thank you, guys. Thank you. Okay.
So, Justin, one thing I noticed we were talking before is that you were our age when you got into politics. So, can you tell us about that?
Sure. So, like you guys, I was very interested, very idealistic, wanted to do my little bit to help the world. That's the way my parents raised me and you raised you. So, believe it or not, I got started when I was 17 years old. I was an intern for our congressman on the Upper West Side, Ted Weiss. And he was a big progressive and a big activist. And he did something in those days that was a bit unusual. He had a constituent office where I interned, as I said, for a year. I actually got high school credit for it. And I really got to see firsthand what it's like to have an office that really works to help constituents and help the world. So, back then he was helping people with housing and homelessness, and he was helping people with health care and Medicare and Medicaid and all the things that matter. And then, of course, he'd go to Washington and do all the good things that those of us care about, including helping climate and the planet. In those days, he was called a big environmentalist. So we were trying to keep the planet green and reduce fossil fuels and all the things we're trying to do today. But as you can see, he didn't have so much success. But he was one of those sincere good guys, and that was a very inspiring experience, and that led to me, starting a career in public service. So,
there's something about like a congressional campaign, and some people start more locally. Like now, I know a lot of people work on mayoral campaigns and council member campaigns, but there's something about a congressional campaign that's really exciting, I feel like, because you're working on the national level, and you're also, helping your own district. It's very...
Right, but one thing that's important to remember for young people and for everybody, it's very, very few people start in Congress.
Right.
As we all know,
yes.
You don't know this guy, Ted Weiss, was a councilman on the west side of Manhattan, and he ran for Congress 3 times before he got it. And then he was a long-term congressman. And the current congressman on the Upper West Side, Jerry Nadler, was a state assemblyman for 20 years before he got to Congress. And you guys know our good friend locally here, George Latimer, has had every political job. He was a city councilman, a county legislator, the chair of the county legislature, a state assemblyman, a state senator, and the county executive. So getting to Congress for most people, you have to start more locally, build your political base, and show people. It's an opportunity to show people you're sincere and you care and really want to get things done. So I got started when I was 17, and then I was very involved in the Upper West Side. I was the Democratic State Committeeman for the West Side. I was on the executive committee of the State Democratic Party when I was in my 20s. And
was that at all hard for you to transition from going from, the city politics to then coming to White Plains and reestablishing yourself there?
As I said, I was even on the executive committee of the state party. So I was sitting there with, Senator Schumer and the important luminaries. But in all honesty, the people in White Plains and in Westchester politics are much nicer than in New York City. It's very rough in New York City and in New York State. So coming here, I knew people here from my time in state politics. I had even met George Latimer on the state scene before I moved to White Plains. So I've known him a very long time. But people are much nicer, so it's better to be in a more positive. I find in White Plains and in Westchester, it's a much more positive, constructive, and people want to work together more, and it's just a better environment. So I enjoy that much more. So, although I did a big environmental thing when I was on the West Side. It was before the time to do it. I was on the political committee of the New York City Sierra Club. So what we would do is we would interview candidates based on their environmental records. And it was a lot of fun. And as I said, I was in my probably in my mid upper 20s, and we would be meeting with borough presidents and other luminaries, and I mean, I was one of the younger people, and we would ask people, "What are you doing about climate and sustainability?" And in those days, as I said, it was all more about protecting the environment was more the. I remember teaching the borough president of the Bronx about environmental racism. He'd never heard of it. He was the borough president of Brooklyn. And it's a great, when you are involved, and you guys know this from your level as kids and throughout, you can educate people a lot, and that makes a big difference and helps make the world a better place. So
yeah. Speaking of, I know you were head of the youth bureau. So awesome how you were able to get into politics at a young age, and since you were chair of the youth bureau, can you tell us a little about that and your experience there?
Sure. Like the White Plains Youth Bureau is a very unique and special place, particularly thanks to our executive director, Frank Williams. He's an unbelievable person. He grew up in the segregated South, and he's just a very idealistic and sincere person, and he's been the chair of the Youth Bureau for, I think it's 37 years. So I was fortunate enough to be the chair of the White Plains Youth Bureau for 4.5 years. And we're not that giant a city, but we have the second largest youth bureau in the United States of America. We have 68 programs, and you can do anything you want in our youth bureau, and that gives kids opportunity in every area, including environmental things like planting and working with climate and sustainability and cleaning parks and things like that. But more importantly, we have things like STEAM and STEM programs and summer camps. I guess one of my big accomplishments was that when I was the chair of the youth bureau, we created a grandpa's group so that our grandpas in White Plains could mentor our youth and help them out. So that was a really great thing and a great program that's expanding. We're expanding countywide and showing people statewide. We bought a second flight simulator. Now, what's really amazing about the White Plains Youth Bureau is if you can't afford their programs, they're free or extremely minimal cost. And that has had tremendous dividends for our city. Because when people don't have opportunity and they don't have paths and they don't have internships and they don't have chances to learn and explore things like flying a plane or working in an airport or working on a food truck. I mean, we expose kids to everything. And if you really want to be a geek, we have STEAM and STEM programs and we have early pregnancy programs. We do everything. So we teach kids that there's a lot of path, a lot of hope, a lot of opportunity. We have almost no youth crime in the city of White Plains, and I attribute that. I always say the Youth Bureau is the secret sauce to our city, and it does amazing things, and it's created an incredible base and way for our kids to see the future and see how bright it can be.
Right. So, yeah, I mean, circling back to you being 17, I mean, Zach, me, and Jack, we're all in high school right now. We go to school every day. We come home, we do our homework. Like, none of us could even fathom being in politics at that age. So how do you even get involved in the first place? Did Ted Weiss himself reach out to you?
No.
Did you reach out to him? No.
I was lucky because I went to one of those specialized high schools in New York City, Hunter High School. And as part of your senior year, you can either take more classes or do an internship or something like that. Right. So I knew I loved politics and government. So I knew somebody that knew Ted Weiss. So I was lucky. So I reached out to their office, and it was pretty amazing. I mean, they once sent me to a public hearing. Can you imagine? I was 17 or 18 years old, and they sent me to a public hearing at what was called the Board of Estimate. It doesn't exist anymore, but it was sort of like. It was all the borough presidents and I think the city controller, and they sent me to read a speech before the Board of Estimate as a 17 or 18-year-old kid. It was a great experience. I learned a lot. I mean, there's nothing like getting involved. And a lot of stuff is not glamorous. That's the way it works. I mean, today I was out campaigning for mayor, and, you have to be a little bit aggressive and you have to be willing to work hard. Look, I'm a guy who's been handing out literature at train stations since I'm 17 and has never stopped. Right. And that's kind of fun that I'm doing it for myself finally. But it's one of the most important ways to help the world, and whether it's in climate or anything, is to find good people and support them. That I think that's if I were to say my greatest accomplishment, I've done a million things in this business as a councilman and a planning board member and a budget committee member and all the different things I've done over the decades. I think the most important thing I've done is find sincere, good candidates and people running for office and support and help them. Because if you can get a person like a George Latimer or a Ken Jenkins higher or into government, you've done a really terrific thing. I mean, there are selfish, egotistical, and terrible people who want to be in government, who don't care and don't want to be constructive and don't want to make a difference. And that's something you can do at a very young age. And I was lucky today. I had 5 or 6 young people helping me on my campaign, and they want to help. And thankfully, they think I'm a sincere guy, and I'd like to believe I'm a sincere guy and have a record in government. Thank you. So that's one of the easiest and best ways to get involved is through campaigns, because candidates always need help, and you can find people who really care and want to make a difference.
So let me ask you, you spoke a little bit about how you had a connection. You knew somebody who knew Ted Weiss. For all the people who are interested in going into politics, especially at a young age, what do you think helps someone more? Is it their ideologies and their thinking and their just raw talent? Or is it the people that you know, the connections that either you already have or that you're able to make, how sociable you are as a person?
Well, I mean, that's a tough question. I don't know. Everybody's different. I think you have to be, it's like anything in life. You have to be persistent and resilient. You have to get out there, meet people, talk to people, and be willing to do hard work. The only way you can make a difference in politics and government, unless you're a gajillionaire, is to really work hard. I mean, look at it. I mean, we have an incredible example here who we're talking about, who you guys know, and you guys have met in my home even, is Congressman George Latimer. I mean, that guy's working since the beginning. When he ran for city council, there were very few Democrats elected in Westchester, and in his town in Rye, there were no Democrats. And he knocked on doors and handed out literature and worked around the clock to make it happen. And that's often how it's done if you're not extremely wealthy, is you just get in there and work and get other people to see that you're sincere and hardworking and make it happen.
I mean, obviously it's easier if you have means, but it's also pretty amazing that someone who, maybe isn't as well off in the beginning of their life can still achieve pretty great things in government. It's open to a lot of people.
So another example, though, of somebody who is inspiring to all of us is our new county executive, Ken Jenkins. How did he get involved in politics? He was not a wealthy guy. I want to be clear, I was not a wealthy guy. But his mother was a nurse, and his father was a New York City police officer. And he got involved in the local NAACP as a volunteer helping out, Yeah,
so another thing we heard about before is that you're building intergenerational centers. I have no idea what that is.
Okay, that's a fair question. So one of my dream projects for the city of White Plains for a long time has been an intergenerational center, which means we kind of get everybody of all different ages together. So, for example, we have a terrible senior center. It's a rundown, terrible place. I was actually there this week with, of all people, George Latimer and our county legislator Ben Boykin and Vicky Presser. We were talking about the cuts to federal programs under the Trump administration. And but when you see the condition of that building, you realize that we need a better place for our seniors. We were talking about the Youth Bureau before. The White Plains Youth Bureau doesn't have space for teens. So in general, we need a place, a state-of-the-art facility where everybody can get together, a community center for elderly, kids, anyone who needs a place where we can have great programming, help kids, help people, and educate people. We don't have a good space like that in the city of White Plains. So I've wanted one for a very long time. The initial, and of course, think about it. We were talking before about our grandpa's program. Could you imagine if our grandpas and our teens are in the same building and they could build really great personal relationships? And these older people, they have a lot of experience and and they want to nurture the youth, and that's just a great place. So let's get everybody together in a beautiful building. And so it's something I've wanted for a really long time, and I'm happy to say that we're making our first bit of progress. The city council approved $175,000 to hire a consulting company to help us start thinking and planning. And that's just the beginning of the process, but it's nice to see. I've been asking the Roach administration and my colleagues for years to push on this, and it's starting. And if I get to be mayor, then at least we'll be that much further ahead, and we'll be thinking about how to create this center, as I said, for our youth and for our families and for our seniors and for everybody to really have a great place to hang out, a state-of-the-art facility where everyone can learn and work together. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Sounds awesome.
Great.
Yeah, it sounds great. I mean, how do you even get the idea for this, though?
Well, I'll tell you, there are many ways. First of all, I've noticed that our senior center is terribly lacking, and as chair of the Youth Bureau, I noticed that we needed a space for our teens and for more programming. And there's a community center in the city called the Slater Center. in downtown, and it's kind of not in such terrific condition. So I was trying to get that renovated, and I was not successful, so maybe we can figure out how to either renovate that or create that in this space. But, there's clearly just a need for this type of space, and we're lucky we have a city where everybody works together, so we need a place where we can gather together.
So that's why intergenerational as opposed to senior and then youth center.
Right, everybody should be together, and also it saves money. To build a youth center only, or to build a teen center only, or to build a center for the elderly, or to build a center just for parents who need some help with daycare and whatever. We could build a lot of different centers and spend a lot of money. Better to have it all under one roof, and just from an economic perspective, we don't have unlimited money. Land is very expensive in White Plains, so we have to think about how we can do things in as an efficient a manner as possible.
Awesome.
Excited to be there. Excited to be there.
It is a dream, and we're going to make it come true.
Love it.
Of course, I hear Make An Impact. Us three are fairly new to this climate initiative, right? You've been here for much longer than us, so can you tell us a little about what you've seen in the past for climate initiatives in White Plains?
Sure. Fortunately, in the city of White Plains, everybody believes in the dangers of climate change and the need to work on sustainability. And that's not always the case. As you guys know, there are a lot of people who think that climate is a hoax, or that, climate is not caused by man. And we have to figure, and they're climate deniers. Unfortunately, in the city of White Plains, everybody feels that we're having a climate crisis and a big problem, and we have to work on sustainability. So we've been working on a lot of different initiatives, whether it's, LED light bulbs for our garages, or LED light bulbs for our streets, which use a lot less energy, more electric charging stations in our city. Recently, a really great thing we've done is over a lot of our plain asphalt garages, we've put solar panels. So we're getting solar energy, and we're actually making money from that solar energy. So it's money for the city, and we're helping protect the environment. One thing where I think we could probably do a little bit better, which as mayor I want to do, is in building codes. I'm not sure that we're so up to date on our building codes for sustainability. So that's where personally I want to make my mark, because obviously, we want to continue the things we're doing. Some interesting things that just last week I learned that we're going to be getting some electric police cars. We initially intended to be the first city in New York State with an electric garbage truck. We have an electric garbage truck, and it's still in New Jersey, believe it or not, at the moment. So it's getting closer, and eventually we're going to have it. And we won't be the first anymore, but we're going to. And our school board, which is separate from us, has a lot of electric school buses. So it's kind of a whole team effort. And actually, we were just awarded a New York State silver designation for a climate smart community, and that's the highest you can get. So it used to be bronze was the highest level you could get. We're bronze, and recently in the last few weeks we became a silver rated community. We're the only silver city in Westchester, and we're the only silver rated community. We're one of 3 cities in the state. So we're really working hard and making a lot of progress, and there's more to be done. We're trying to figure out we're studying geothermal energy for our library. There's an endless amount to do, and we're trying to do it, whether it's recycling food scraps. None of this is exciting, and of course we're just a little city, but if everybody were to do these kinds of things, it could have a tremendous impact on climate. So no one's in denial. To the contrary, we know that we have a problem that will affect us, and certainly will affect you more as our youth, and we're trying to do what we can.
So, you want to go?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how can everybody do their part, right? Because I know you were talking about how, White Plains as a community is really climate conscious, and they believe it's a real issue. But, and we hear about all these great things that the city is doing, but what can we do as an individual in order to really help, solve climate change?
Well, I think I told you what I really believe more than anything. We have actually boards and commissions where we have a conservation committee and we have a sustainability committee, and I bet you guys could come on as volunteers and help out on things like that. But I actually believe as much as that is you should get involved in local politics and government. In your local Democratic or Republican Party, people should be involved in campaigns and elections and working and speaking with public officials. I've seen many of you guys involved for a while, and the opportunity to speak to a councilman, a congressman, a state senator, or a county legislator, and to let them know that you care about climate and how important it is to you and to everyone has real impact. That's, it's real, and they need to hear, everybody needs to hear from you guys. So
Yep.
I definitely would say get involved in political things. And before you know it, you'll be in college, and getting involved in there is another great place. There are There are Democratic clubs and environmental clubs, and in your schools there are as well. And certainly through the Youth Bureau is another great way always to be involved in our city. So that would be it's about being active and being involved. That's the only way you're going to make a difference.
Awesome.
Too many people said, I just want to interrupt before we wrap up.
Yeah.
Too many people want to yell and scream at the TV or go on social media and say crazy stuff. The reality is get involved and do work and help people.
So you mentioned a little bit about how White Plains is the only city in Westchester to receive the highest climate standard, the silver status. How do you create and foster that environment of leaders, of game changers, of people who really want to tackle climate change head on?
I think you have to be honest with people. A lot of honest discussion is what it takes. We're lucky we're in a city with a lot of people of goodwill doing a lot of good things, and you have to foster that. On Friday it was Arbor Day. So, we're lucky we have something called the White Plains Beautification Foundation, and they plant flowers and make things really beautiful in our city, and there's a lot of not-for-profit money, and they work with the city, and they work with private arborists and others, and, we are a tree city. So, for example, you can be a tree city where it's our 42nd year being designated as a tree city. So we can either celebrate that as a community or do very little with that. The truth of the matter is we celebrate it. We bring people together. We explain, to be a tree city, you have to replant trees, and you need an arborist. We actually have an arborist in our city.
I saw you guys planting a tree on social media with Mayor Roach and a bunch of council members. I thought that. Yeah.
But I'm saying, part of it is like if we, as the leaders of the city, say to people, we want you to be involved with the Beautification Foundation and with replanting trees and protecting our trees. It starts at the top. If there's an attitude that climate matters and trees matter and clean water matters and electric charging stations matter, and it fosters a community because people in White Plains as a group do believe in climate change and the dangers of it and that we have to address it head on. So we work together. I mean, that's one of the saddest thing in America today is that people are at each other's throats and they're not working together. It's interesting. I was at a Democratic meeting recently, and George came into a Democratic meeting, and he's, of course, new in Washington, and then, of course, he's our congressman, so they were going to stop the meeting or let him cut the line to speak ahead of people like me, which is, of course, the right thing to do. And he was like, no, please go. It's nice to see government or political organization functioning properly the way it's supposed to, with dialogue and debate and thoughtful discussion and people working together. And he's distressed, as we're all distressed in Washington. Everyone's at everybody's throats, and there's a lot of division and divisiveness, and people aren't working together to get things done. And I mean, for myself, I view White Plains and Westchester as the political pond that I swim in, where I work, and I have to do my part, and we need people like you to help to bring in and have constructive people and having constructive dialogue where we all work together on, doesn't matter, pick your issue, affordable housing, climate, the need for more green spaces, the list of things we need to work on together, intergenerational centers, youth bureau, is we need people to say we need to work together and pull together and row together to build a better White Plains and Westchester. Unfortunately, we have terrific political leadership here, and we've had to fight for that, and you guys know that. We had to throw out a congressman who really wasn't a collaborative type of person, and fortunately, look at our leadership team. We have people like the head of the state senate is Andre Stewart Cousins was from White Plains, and now she's all over Westchester. Our state senator Shelley Mayer, building and working with everybody. George Latimer, Ken Jenkins, our county executive. We have fantastic people who really want to build a better world and work together and fight all the hatred and anger and intolerance. And I'm grateful to be working with all of them. And it's very inspiring, and we try to get things done. So thank you so much for having me. This has been terrific.
Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for coming, Mr. Brasch. Yeah.
Yep, thank you for joining us.
Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Newsflash's first ever climate podcast episode. We are so grateful to have you guys. And if you guys like the type of content and want to see more of it, feel free to follow our Instagram at NewsFlashOfficial. We post some podcast clips there and some other cool events that we do every once in a while. If you're interested in reading our articles or checking out some of our super cool art, please feel free to go onto the Newsflash Climate website. That is newsflashclimate.com. We post plenty of articles of art. Some of our full-length podcasts are going to be up on there too, and that's where we do our main stuff. So feel free to check that out too. If you guys are interested in getting notified every time we post a new podcast or newsletter, on the website. You can press subscribe to newsletter and you will get notified on the first of the month every single time that we post. In addition, if you guys love what we do and want to be a part of Newsflash, on the website, you can click the Write For Us button, submit your name, your email, a message if you'd like, and we'd love to get back to you and make you part of our team here at Newsflash.